And you are watching another edition of Bloat Splits. I did not expect it to start that quick. A little bit of a technical error on my part, but here we are, joined by one Mr. Michael Nania after some real football was played. So this is a really exciting time of the season. Michael, my man, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's always a great feeling when you have that first new batch of film, for me, the stats that come out, just, because you spend like 8 months looking at the same games over and over, and then to get something fresh it's awesome. It's like a new season of a show. Like, you're tired of talking about theories and predictions and recapping, rewatching, and I mean, I guess it is like a new show. It's just like a reality show versus something fictional, I guess. So it's always exciting at this point.
Yeah, I've explained it to my wife like that in terms of like sports, because she knows, like, she played a bunch of sports in high school, but like, why do you like it so much? Like, it's like every season's like a new reality show, but like, it's not determined. All the reality shows, like, they're telling them like, hey, fight with Monica, make it more dramatic. Like, no, this is real. So I love it. But yeah, exciting times.
Other than Michael Clemens, someone's whispering in his ear, telling him to start some fights.
That is true. But the thing, even like, and we'll talk about Michael Clemens and stuff. I actually felt like, I think the Packers instigated that one a little bit, but he still has to be smarter. We'll see what happens with him. Did he get benched completely after that play? I know he was pulled. After, but did he come back in the game? I honestly kind of forget.
I forget he played the fewest snaps of the starters. I forget at which point that was. He's a guy who may have played more with the second team, so he may have been completely benched. I'm not entirely sure, but he definitely got taken out for at least a couple plays.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like him versus Weaver versus Watts and McGregor and stuff. Just because I feel like they like Clemens based on their comments in the media, but we'll get to it. Some exciting stuff. I'm sure, Nania, how many articles have you written this week? How many articles have you written since said Packers game? That's the question I'll ask you.
Oh, I don't even know. It's been at least, I think I did 2 yesterday, 1 today already, and like, full-fledged articles. I did 3, I think, the following day after the game. So it's just fun because every position, every player is its own storyline once you get to this point. You have the whole offseason to flesh things out from the previous season. But once a game is over, for me, and I know it's the same for you, it's not just, what was the score, what are the main storylines? It's like, I want to know how the punter did. I want to look at his hang time. I want to see, Leonard Taylor and his pass rushing and the backup interior lineman who was blocking the best. So there's just so many individual stories that come out of each game. It's the same in the regular season, but especially right now when there's extra attention on the back end of the roster. So it's just really fun to dive into each one of those stories, give them all their attention that they deserve.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. You've done, again, it's probably an article or 2 a day at this point. So make sure to subscribe to Jet X Factor. I'm not sure exactly which ones are free, which ones aren't free, but make sure you subscribe. And then I put out a offensive line video that was 16 minutes long, a defensive line video that was 18 minutes long. Shout out to our new editor, Sam, who is helping me out with doing some editing and stuff there. And then you also have the full review, which is an hour and 20 minutes. So break it down from a lot of angles. People have been pretty receptive to the new kind of style that we're going with those videos. A lot of good comments and stuff. So I really appreciate it. If you're old to the old style, you didn't like the old style, go to the new style. Every video, all those short videos now are their own individual videos and not just cut out. It's not just like a clip from the big videos. So hit the offensive line, the starting guys, and I hit a lot of Will McDonald, Leonard Taylor, and Jay Tufele on those videos. So go and check those out. But obviously, an exciting game. You're talking, 30-10. It's preseason, but still, as I'm sure you'll agree with, like a win is better than a loss, right? Like, we still want to see the Jets win, whether it be preseason or not. Practice reps versus the Giants or not. We want to see the Jets win, and you liked a lot of what you saw. I think overall, like from Aaron Glenn, you like the fact that he's holding his players accountable and yelling at guys and pulling guys and all of that stuff. You see the energy on the sideline, which I think maybe a little bit overrated, to be completely honest, Michael. It's just like Bill Belichick didn't have any energy, and he won a lot of games. And there's a lot of people like, oh, we need the energy. It's like, okay, well, Bill Belichick didn't have it. Is he a bad coach now? Yeah, exactly. So it's like win, just win. but it's at least nice to see guys being held accountable, getting pulled off the field. I also enjoyed the fact, and like it almost seemed like, I wonder if the Green Bay Packers coach was like kind of like, oh, this guy's a dick, but like he's calling timeouts before the first half ends to try to get the ball back to the Jets, and maybe they can get a big play or two and get in field goal range. Like Saleh didn't do that stuff. He had no time management, calling timeouts after timeouts, delay of games after timeouts. They're just so much bad. So just to see him pulling guys off the field, holding them accountable, and then even calling timeout before the end of the first half, I was like, wow, we can actually use timeouts in the first half. It's like, Saleh never ever did that. So overall, I know there's not a lot to take away from like defense, offense, like schematically. We'll get a little bit into it. But overall, like, did you see anything from Glenn that was positive? Anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it can be overrated. How much does a guy yell and scream on the sideline? I think when you're a team like the Jets and you've lost so much, the fans start to overrate that a little bit because you're just desperate for some sort of passion and energy out of a team. But in this case, I think that's what his calling card is going to be. It works for Belichick, it works for Andy Reid that they're not that way. But I think for Aaron Glenn, that is how he's going to want this team to play. So to see them come out here and more so than what he was doing, I think that the team's play on the field backed it up. And it was just one preseason game. You're playing the Packers, who are an entrenched good team. They've proven themselves. So maybe they just weren't playing too hard. I know they were doing push-ups out there at practice the next day. So, maybe that, flipped a switch for them. But we'll see if they can maintain that. But at least for this one game, they were winning the line of scrimmage. They tackled well. They forced a lot of missed tackles on Green Bay's end. So they were just clearly the more physical team. So I liked that element of seeing the way that they've practiced and, the things that Glenn has talked about being translated to a game environment, even if it's a preseason game. Just for now, it's good to see that. So we'll see if they could sustain that the next 2 weeks of the preseason and then obviously into the regular season. But I like the way that his, philosophies translated to the game more so than anything, he is doing. But you like to see, you talk about accountability. So to see that actually happening in a game was definitely encouraging as well. And I think in this second game, I'm curious to see if they could eliminate some of those sideline out of bounds, post play type penalties that can be avoided.
Yeah. I'll throw this one to you first, so I don't, kind of take the whole topic. But the coordinators, did you see anything from the coordinators that you specifically liked or at least thought was notable?
I think, a lot of times in recent years we've complained about run, pass, for second down run, like we're playing for third down. But I do feel like that's going to be their kind of go-to this year. But it was only one drive, but I feel like that was a microcosm of how they want it to look, is consistent positive gains on the ground. Let's get to third and short to medium. And that's when Justin Fields can be effective because he can check the ball down and move the chains like he did the first third down. And it's short enough for him to be a scrambling threat as well, like he did on the touchdown play. So I think, again, just one preseason drive. I'm not saying they're going to do exactly that the whole year, but I do think it's going to be run first. It's going to be a lot of early down runs. But if the offensive line is good enough, and if Brees and Allen will, but if Brees can run with a more downhill mentality and they can continuously get 2-3 yards at a minimum on those early down carries, then they could get to some third and shorts. And I think Fields can work with that and stay out of the mistake plays that he would make on third and long situations. So I think that was the main thing I would take away. Scheme, like the passes were just check downs. He scrambled once, a couple speed outs, the one that he missed on the touchdown play, and then the one he poorly threw to the outside. So I don't think a ton in terms of the concepts or anything to look at. Even the runs were fairly simple, but just like the run first identity and going to that in early downs, I think that's something that could translate.
Yeah, I don't think they want Justin Fields, and obviously with every quarterback, but like specifically Justin Fields, you don't want him in a lot of third downs where you have to hit the intermediate or the deep. Like you want to get in those third and sixes, third and fives where you can check it down to whoever it may be, and they can pick up a first down. I thought really like there was, I think they played with a little bit more tempo. They weren't running the clock down to 0 every single play, which was nice. Sometimes they hurried a little bit, which was nice to see. A lot of Garrett Wilson in motion, you saw. and we'll talk about Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson all like individually, but the play that he ran for the touchdown, 3rd and 3, Garrett Wilson's wide open on a speed out and he skips him for whatever reason. Those are plays where those are plays where it's easy to be a rah content creator or whatever you want to call Jet X and us and whatever. But you look at that play, 3rd and 3, speed out, wide open, you got to hit him. So there's no reason for him to skip there. You can't just depend on the offensive line's going to block it well enough for me to scramble and get a touchdown. So the result was great for that one. You like to see the athleticism, you like to see all that stuff, stepping up in the pocket, but the process wasn't great on that one just because, again, you cannot depend on the offensive line blocking like that. So he has to hit him. He missed Garrett Wilson on the out route, the speed out. And I said it in college, and I actually got criticized a little bit when I did the Justin Fields review. I said his accuracy is a little bit, it's not as consistent as you want it to be. And people are like, oh my God, the most accurate quarterback and stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I think in general, like there is some throws where he puts a little bit too much heat on it, puts a little bit too much to the outside. So he missed Garrett Wilson kind of twice there. And then not the third time, it's not in order, but that one play where it's play action, I forget the exact concept, but I think Garrett Wilson was running a deep over and he's open. It's a play that I think a really good quarterback makes. I think you want Fields to make that throw sometimes. He's not going to make it all the time, but he had enough room to fit that ball in there. And it's not a thing where like the window was yay big. It was a pretty damn big window that he could have hit Garrett Wilson on. He ended up checking it. It's the play. He ended up checking down to Andrew Beck, and he went for 26 yards on that one.
Yeah.
So Fields, I give him like a B minus.
And quickly, I saw that play. I'm curious you just said what you thought, but like I remember watching it, but the one corner that was on that side, I think they were playing cover 3, but the corner that was on that side, it looked like he totally busted it and was, he bumped into the linebacker. He was so shallow. So do you think that he may, or from Fields' perspective, he may have read that early and kind of looked it off because he assumed it would be covered, and then that bust kind of happened to open it up, and that might be why he didn't go to it? Like he just kind of made that quick read. All right, that's going to be covered. It's cover 3. Let me check this down. And then it ended up being open because of that bust.
Yeah, like I think it's possible that he's like if we're giving the benefit of the doubt, like pre-snap he noticed that, but I don't think he's really the best pre-snap reader. So like maybe giving him a little bit of extra credit that he doesn't deserve. And it was only like a 2-man concept, really. I think it was like an overs or something. I think it was an over with a dig on the outside. So it was really that to check down. So it's not like it was an overly complicated concept where he had to really get through 1, 2, 3, 4, or anything like that. So he had enough time, in my opinion, to at least check that corner, because the safety was so high. If that corner wasn't gaining depth, just fit that ball in there. Even if the corner did gain enough depth, he could have fit it in back shoulder on him and let Garrett Wilson work back to the football. So again, I'm not gonna be overly critical of that play, but I would say for a quarterback, like it's a play where I'm like, okay, a little bit of a ding. So I think Justin Fields played like a B minus B game, for only throwing the ball 4 times, obviously the scramble and all that, but you missed Garrett Wilson kind of 3 times in that first drive. And it seems like even at the Giants practice, he was missing Garrett Wilson a little bit from some of the videos that they were playing. And it's why like in the offseason, I don't know if you remember specifically talking to me about it, but I'm like that all that crap is kind of overrated, in terms of like, oh, they played college football together, all of that. Like if you're doing it at the NFL level, like Rodgers and Devontae, like, okay, I think that matters, but him playing with Justin Fields for a year and 2 in college, I do think that chemistry is kind of generally overrated. And we see him missing Garrett Wilson a little bit. Now, the one he did miss on the speed out where he actually threw the ball, his front foot was closed off, and you tend to close your front foot. Your arm overcompensates for your lower half, and I think that's why I put a little bit too much on the ball and too much outside. But overall, I would say like a B grade, B minus grade for Justin Fields. Nothing great, but he got through his reads relatively well, was relatively accurate, willing to check the ball down and all of that. So I would probably give him like a B grade. Do you agree with that assessment?
I did give a letter grade in my breakdown. I did, and I went higher. I went A minus just because I broke down all those mistakes in each clip. I saw them as well, but I just felt like from the perspective of trying to eliminate what Fields has usually been in terms of being mistake prone, holding the ball too long. Like from that perspective, I thought it was promising. Just the fact that he was willing to take check downs. I liked on that one scramble, he only picked up 1 yard, but he had the option to maybe throw back inside to Tyler Johnson, but he didn't do it. He scrambled instead. And I like that because Robbie reported it, I think last week, but he threw an interception in practice on a play like that where he threw back to the middle of the field to Ruckert and he missed high, got picked off. Other people were reporting that as a drop by Ruckert, but Robbie was saying how, that's a dangerous throw that the quarterback can't be making. So I did really like in that particular situation how he made the decision to take the safe play versus something risky. So I went a little bit higher just because I felt like it checked the right boxes that I was looking for. But yeah, for sure, it's definitely frustrating to still see Garrett. It's only one preseason drive, and we've already seen Garrett Wilson have a 3-play compilation of plays where he should have been hit on. So we might be doing more of that this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, you talk about the speed out. That's 1 catch, 3 yards. You talk about the other speed out was probably like another catch for 5 yards. Talking about 2 catches, 8 yards, and then that over route. If he hits that, you're talking about 3 catches for that was going to be 20, 25 yards right there. So Garrett probably should have had 3 catches for 30, 40 yards in that game. But nonetheless, yeah, I would say like he checked a lot of boxes and it was more positive than negative for Fields. So I will definitely take that. Say hello to some people in the chat. Jimmy Smoove Films, just little JETS right there. John Hassel says Thibodeau is a turd. Looking forward to watching our offensive line put him on the ground over and over again. I guess it depends on how much they're actually playing. Big mouth from that guy. Good article by Nania this AM. And like, I remember pre-draft kind of talking about him, and I was saying like there are some yellow flags with him. I don't even say red flags, but yellow flags with how he kind of acts in his behavior. And then there's people on YouTube like, you don't know him, you're a piece of shit, he's just a young kid trying to make it. I'm like, okay, dude, like I'm just talking about what I see and kind of his attitude and stuff. And he even admitted in the presser this week. I don't know exactly the question, but he said like he blew an answer with the Jets on one of his visits where like he was too tired and just said like, yeah, I can't do it, or he loafed it, or whatever he did. So I do think he definitely has that Jamal Adams to him. And Jamal Adams was at least a very good player. And I think at least an all-pro once. Thibodeau really hasn't done much in the NFL. Like he's been a decent player at best, I would say so far. So he definitely has a bigger mouth than his play kind of allows him to have. But so I don't really enjoy Thibodeau. I'm definitely obviously happy they skipped on him for Sauce, right? Like 2-time All-Pro guy who's already re-signed. He's out on Twitter a little bit more than some people like, but I think it's completely fine. A guy you want to build your franchise around, and Thibodeau, like, what's his highest sacks in the year? I'm not even sure, but he's kind of average at best. And again, talks like he's a superstar, and I do think his quote this week was maybe a little bit out of context in terms of like, like Justin couldn't evaluate Justin Fields because he was running around. When you actually read the full thing, I don't think it was as bad. It's like, yeah, our defensive line's putting a lot of pressure on guys, whatever. But apparently, I think I saw the article. I didn't read the article that you wrote, just so damn busy, and you put out 47 a week, which is great.
Nick, the one that put out this about Thibodeau this morning.
Oh, it was Nick. Okay. So what are your thoughts? And I guess we'll go back into the game. But I guess we can kind of hit on Thibodeau and a little bit of the joint practice, and then we'll kind of bounce back to the actual game.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's totally surprising that the Giants defensive line was productive in those practices. Like you said, that could be the best in the league, maybe the best D tackle. And I mean, Carter is going to be up there as an edge rusher, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Brian Burns is already up there. And then, Thibodeau is probably the weakest link, and he's at least average. So it's a really good unit. Not totally surprising. I think practice is pro defensive line anyway, especially like those one-on-one drills. Like I don't really take anything from that because, they don't have to think run pass. There aren't other linemen there to help out.
The two-way go.
Not like playing all the way to the ground. Yeah, two-way, like you said, like it's a lot more space to work with. So I don't really put a lot into that, but the team drills, it seemed like they won also. So I don't really know how much to take from joint practices without being able to watch it, because I don't always trust what's being said from beat reporters watching from 3 miles away. And, they have no replays or anything. So like, how much do I take from that? Not much. So yeah, but Thibodeau, I feel like it was kind of apparent from pre-draft that this was maybe going to be that type of guy from an off-field perspective. So yeah, not ideal.
Yeah. Like you said, two-way go, run, pass, situational, getting tired. Like it's definitely advantageous to the defensive line. And also, I think are the Jets still missing John Simpson too? So obviously, that would help if he was there. I don't think he was practicing this week. I could be wrong, but having Myers at center, who is he's a low end starter, a really good backup. But we saw even in the Packers preseason game that he was the weaker link of that offensive line. I don't think he was terrible. A little bit late picking up that one stunt. That's been passed off
Simpson was back
really well
this week. I was just looking that up to make sure. Back. Yeah.
The thing and like really from the Giants practice, like, there's really not much else to take away from it. Really, offensive line, defensive line, they beat us up a little bit on the defensive line. Fine. Again, I if I had to put my money on it now, it's probably Giants, Eagles as the top two defensive lines in the NFL. I think I probably put the Giants at one. Gun to my head. So good test for them. From the Jets offensive line. They're still young. I think they'll be a top 10 unit. I don't think they've hit their ceiling. If they keep all these guys around, I think they could be the best offensive line in a year or two. It'll be really interesting to see what they do actually with Tippmann going forward, because I do think he gives you the flexibility of, hey, listen, if we lose one of John Simpson or ABT, he plugs into that spot. Or we're kind of floating out there. Okay, he could play center, or let's say we lose John Simpson, he could play center or left guard. You come into free agency, you chase some centers, you chase some left guards, you see which one is the best kind of contract for you. Tippmann plays the other spot, So it'll be interesting. I'm hoping that they keep all of these guys around realistically. I think keeping an offensive line around for a few years is obviously really good for chemistry and all of that stuff. So it'll be interesting. In terms of practice, other than that, saw Fields being a little bit erratic. It happens, but apparently he was going through the offense well, which I guess is a positive. And really past that, like Arian Smith had a really nice catch, right, in that one contested catch. But past that, was there much of anything that's really of note from the practices, minus trench battles and Arian Smith making a kind of moss on a guy?
Yeah, not much that I saw to really take away, but I mean, it's cool that Arian Smith has been really active in the offense, more so than just, I think going into camp, I expected occasionally he would make a big play, but the fact that he's been pretty consistent is a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Was there one JetX writer, content creator, owner who's a little bit more down on him, and one JetX creator, content creator, owner who's a little bit higher on the Arian Smith pick in this? Any comment on that?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't have full recollection of that. I just like to stay present. Just look at what's going on in front of us.
Dude, it's just a thing where like I watched him and like I get it. This speed is elite. Like we saw the speed. You see the athleticism. So that's why I see him getting compared to like Robbie Anderson and Stephen Hill. Like you got like it takes, you don't have to watch the film. You watch the highlights and you see how he moves and he cuts out of his breaks. They're not even comparable. And I think he has better speed. Obviously, he has better speed than Stephen Hill, I think, and even Robbie Anderson, because his acceleration, his quickness is much better. So it wasn't a guy I was standing for, but I was like, dude, if this guy can just catch the ball, like he could be legit. He's been works hard. He's a blocker. I'm sure they like that. He should have been hit for a 50-yard touchdown, 60-yard touchdown, whatever that was. But Adrian Martinez overthrew him. Arian Smith could have ran a little bit better of a route, like being really nitpicky, but overall he had a step or two on him. Like, hey, that should have been a touchdown. If they had more chemistry and all that stuff, maybe it is. But at the end of the day, how many times has Adrian, or it's Adrian, right? Adrian Martinez. How many times has he thrown a deep ball to Arian Smith? Probably very little. So like he maybe just didn't anticipate the speed or whatever it may have been, put a little bit too much on it. But yeah, it's nice to see, because really, like, I think Reynolds is receiver 2, even though I could say just based on reports from camp, I haven't been hearing as much as I would personally like. But I think Arian Smith has a legit shot to be receiver 3 start of the season or very early on into the season, just based on the speed element. Even if he's not making catches, he gets one catch for 12 yards every game. Just that speed element, I think the Jets are going to want that on the field, and he's going to see a lot of reps. So I think there's a legitimate shot that he's going to be receiver 3, and whether it be right off the bat or early on.
Yeah, I mean, I may have been a little too critical on the pick initially, because I didn't fully realize yet until I went into it, kind of the well-roundedness of his profile, because I just, kind of gut reaction. It was like, oh, deep threat, fast guy, drops a lot of passes, 4th round pick. So I was definitely a little harsh on it early, but we'll see how it pans out, because I would have really liked to see that throw be accurate in the Packers game, for him to have the chance to catch that ball, because it's great that he's caught a lot of passes in camp. He had a couple receptions in that game when they were,
Mhm.
on his hands. But I feel like it's just a totally different level of pressure in the game. So,
Yeah.
for all the work he's put in, as good as he's looked, I think it's just different. Can you rise to the occasion under the pressure of a game when someone in a different uniform is trying to hit you? There's 80,000 people in the stands. It's just a different level of pressure. And if, he continues to drop passes, almost 20% of his passes like he did in college, then none of this other stuff is going to matter. And until we see
Yeah.
him prove that that's not going to be the case in real games, you just don't know yet. So I think that's why he'll probably start on a lower part of the depth chart and work his way up as he gets a lot of receptions without dropping passes, proves that he can be relied upon. So we still have to see. It's not proven yet. It's not like I'm trying to be proven right. Like, oh look, I told you
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
many drops for fourth round pick,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was a little harsh early because, as you said, there's much more to him than just fast in a straight line. It's the quickness out of breaks.
Yeah.
His intensity as a blocker. So he's exciting, and I think with the lack of depth in this unit, if he makes some plays early, and like I said, most importantly, if he could just catch your first 10 passes, don't drop any of the regular season, that's when the Jets can have some confidence. Okay, the hands
Mhm.
are something we can rely on. Let's give him a bigger role because we don't have a lot of upside on this unit otherwise. Why not put him at receiver too? So I could definitely see that at some point mid-season if he starts off
Yeah.
well within his role.
Yeah, you're hoping that like the first big post that he gets hit on that he doesn't drop it because like then at least it's a mental thing with all the fans and stuff. Then it's like, oh shit, everything I just worked for, I dropped my first pass and it's a snowball from there. Like it seems
Yeah.
like it could be one of those things. So you're hoping he really built up his confidence to the point where even if he drops, he's like, I got the next one. You don't want to let it linger and all that stuff and
It's
just
kind of like it
have a
reminds me
short
of Zach
memory.
Wilson. The fact that I'm not saying his whole career would have went differently if this game went differently, but the fact that his home opener against the Pats snowballed the way that it did with the pick after pick after pick, it almost buried him in a hole I don't think he ever really
Yeah.
got out of. It just created like you could see he had the yips when he played. Like he's more talented
Mhm.
than how he played. Like the film was there in college, but that last season in college, he's playing in front of nobody as the
Mhm.
man on campus at BYU. And, he was able to just sling it. And then you have to come to New York as the franchise quarterback. You throw 4 picks against the Patriots in your first home game, and it just changes everything mentally. So yeah, I'm not saying it would have went differently if that was a better game, but yeah, I think there is something to be said for how do you start and what sort of headspace does that put you in to build off of as a young player. So it would be great if Smith could start the season off well from a pass
Mhm.
catching standpoint, just securing the ball.
Yeah, like, and I know people are going to be like maybe critical of this, but Zach Wilson, like just his physical talent, he had the ability to be a top 10 quarterback. Like his upside was very,
Yeah.
very, very high. But when you get the yips, you get the yips. Like we didn't take it's so hard to evaluate, and especially when you talk about that pressure. It's a really good point because like going from playing COVID season Utah football, BYU versus starting quarterback for the Jets, it's a little bit different pressure. So I think he got the yips a little bit, but I'm talking. We'll hit back on receivers. We'll kind of transition the Arian Smith talk into some receiver talk from this game. We'll say hello to some people who are in the chat. Todd, howdy, what's up, dude? Danger Zone. Check out his podcast. I was on that about a week ago, right before the game. Jet up from Alex. What's up to Christian? Alex, I can't wait for the left tackle, tackle breakdowns later in the season. So basically during the season, I'm going to kind of do like the main studs of the game and duds, like maybe the main stud or two, the main dud, or I'll do like position groups. So we'll see. But like I said, all the videos going forward will have their own kind of short individual videos. So it'll be nice for everybody. Crispy, hey, Michael Joe, everyone, hope all is well. Go Jets, hit the like button, support. Subscribe to the channel is great. NY Jets content. I've seen Chris in quite a few channels. I think Chris is the most positive, nicest, most promoting fan I've seen out there. So I appreciate you, Chris, for being a good dude. Christian says Giants defensive line really good. Yep. Tufele clip. Which I think you just put that out. No, yeah, I didn't do it. I saw myself tagged on Twitter.
I was watching the review and just the whole, the sack itself, but also your breakdown. I was like, this is kind of artwork here, just all the elements to this sack that in the way that you broke it down. So I felt like it was worth clipping that specific moment, throwing it up there.
Yeah,
We're
dude, I
getting
appreciate
the film out there in all different channels now. We had a short
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago with Will McDonald.
Mhm.
Now we got the more concise, focused reviews. We still got the full review, putting up
Yep.
Twitter clips. I know Robbie said he wanted to throw it up on Instagram, a couple other things. So we're making sure the
Oh, sweet.
Blewitz Blitz wave is coming
Yeah.
through this season.
Yeah. I'm really going to try to attack it this offseason and grow and actually watch out. I think every week. So, and just again for future for people who are really diehard channel people, it's going to be you're going to get the full review every week, a short review every week, 10 to 20 minutes, just of like main studs and duds, and then I think you're going to get a short every week as well, like not a short video, but like a short. I think I Sauce Gardner short maybe coming out in the next day or two. So watch out for that. But yeah, dude, and we'll get into Tufele, but we'll get into it later. But that sack was nice, and obviously you said you appreciate it, and you that's why you put it up. But we'll get to it. There's a lot more than just he beat the guy. Like that's why I can't take away a lot from certain practice reports and whatever else, because what was the situation, all that stuff. Does Nick Mangold have a son? We need a Mangold Jr. at center. Yeah, like that might be the Jets' plan, honestly. Like, hey, well, I don't know, because you're going to need to sign Simpson or ABT before the draft. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with that position. We'll get to that, later on in the offseason. But for me right now, I would like to sign both of them, really. They're both really good players. I don't think John Simpson will demand a ton. Actually, probably will. It'll be like $17-18 million most likely. But danger zone. How worried are you guys about our tackle depth? I think a lot of the optimism and the 9 wins is glossing over how thin we are at some key spots. Couldn't unravel fast. I'll throw that one to you first, Nadia. How are you concerned about the depth, specifically at tackle, but other key spots as well?
I mean, the thing with tackle is if Olu goes down, how do you handle that? Because, like you said, I think Okorafor as a right tackle, pretty solid depth relative to what most teams would have in that position. But can we trust him at left tackle? Do you have to keep Max Mitchell to address that? And then obviously, I think we know Max Mitchell isn't ideal if he's starting for you. So it's really that left tackle spot. But Okorafor at right tackle, I think is good for a backup. Myers for a center is
if
good.
he was what he was with the Steelers. We have to say that. We have to put that in there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was one drive with the Patriots, so we'll see. But he didn't play too great in this game, from what I saw.
No. Didn't you were a big Cam Fleming guy a couple of years ago, right? Like now he's a free agent who still needs to be signed. Did he just like I'm not sure how privy you are, not like privy, but how up to date you are on Cam Fleming info. But
I'm not
a guy that I remember you were
it.
calling for. Yeah, you were calling for him a year or two ago at least. So he's a free agent now. Like I wonder if that's a guy that the Jets should be looking to bring in.
Commanders yesterday.
Yeah. So, did he just like drop off the face of the earth last year or something? Like I wonder what his pressures and Okay. Yeah, I'm concerned about left tackle because Okorafor hasn't played there at the NFL level, minus that one patch drive or two, whatever it was. And once Max Mitchell or if Carter Warren is cut, I might have to pull some receipts. I might have to pull an NYJ Matt on Twitter and go back to some Damian Woody and Lee Duzible shitting on me for saying that he sucked last offseason. So I'm kind of waiting on that a little bit. And I was told that he's going to be a good starter. I had to give him time. It doesn't develop the same way and whatever. I said, well, here are 40 plays of him sucking ass. So tell me why I should be positive about this guy. They both suck. I'm sorry. So I would like to see somebody better than those guys. But like realistically, at a lot of positions on a lot of NFL teams, like the depth isn't how deep are all the other teams in the NFL? Like Dana, like you and I and Nani, like we're all hyper focused on it, but do the Chiefs have great tackle depth, great receiver depth? Do the Eagles, obviously some of them may, but I don't think depth is all that great around the NFL level. But I would say tackle, I'm specifically concerned. But like corner, they have solid depth. I think safety, they have solid depth there. Defensive line, if Q goes out, like if anybody loses their D tackle one, who's a superstar, they're gonna kind of be screwed. Edge rush. I would say I'm a little bit concerned. I would say specifically about D end, tackle, tight end, and receiver. So, but like how many teams don't have depth concerns? I don't know. It's kind of a hard question to answer because I have to go over all the teams' depth charts and stuff. But maybe we're overrating some other teams' depth, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeti says,
I mean, I think on that topic, like I think it comes down more to like your system and how easily can you keep it moving with a replacement in there. I think that is what kind of separates the good teams more so than, we have a bunch of starters or our backups could start for another team. I think it's more that their system is so good that, you could lose a couple starters and it keeps chugging. Or, if they're top stars on the team, as long as they're healthy, they're so good that they could, you put anyone else around them and they'll look good. Or, the quarterback, more important than anything else. I think a lot of quarterbacks are great enough. Like, look at Josh Allen. They lose Stephon Diggs, and I don't think that receiver group would. They have solid players, but if we're ranking pure talent, that's not near the top of the
Mm,
league. But they lose Stephon Diggs, they don't miss a beat because they have a great system and a great quarterback. So I
yeah.
think it a lot of times
Yeah.
comes down to that more so than like how talented your backups are.
Yeah, like who would Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir be if they didn't have Josh Allen? Like, I'm not sure they'd really be much of anything. Now, I think Shakir is actually a decent player, but like, I don't know. Um, I guess we'll go back and we'll get to the rest of the chat in a little bit, but I got to bring this one up. In terms of pass catchers, we'll get through all the tight ends and receivers, but can I take an Andrew Beck victory lap a little bit? And it's like, I'm not even saying he's going to be a great player or anything like that on the Jets. Just him coming out with the first team and getting 2 catches in the first drive, I think kind of validates my opinion on him. I'm not I'm not standing for him saying he's going to get 13 touchdowns this year, but like I was looking at his film and then looking at other people on Twitter and whatever else, and they were like, "Oh, I don't know if he's going to make the roster. Do the Jets even have a fullback? Like who's going to be a tight end 3 or whatever?" And I'm like, Andrew Beck, fullback 1, tight end 2. Like I said it 1,000 times since February. I did that review in February, and I was calling for it then. So when he came out and got like the first reception or 2 or whatever it was, 32 catches, 36 yards. Now, yes, checkdowns, all of that. I was gleaming. I was honestly so happy to get victories like that. Feel very, very nice, especially when it's like bottom of the roster type players that you're standing for. So your thoughts on our hero and Andrew Beck, and with that, secondarily, how many touchdowns? And again, like fullback dives or fullback whatever. Like how many touchdowns or what production does Andrew Beck need to get this year? In order for me to get a Andrew Beck jersey. Like at what point is it like you kind of have to do this? Like, yeah, it'll be a $45 one from Thailand or something like that, nonetheless. But what do you think about him? And then at what point is like, blow, you got to just get a Beck jersey?
Well, I'm glad to be aboard the Andrew Beck bandwagon along with you, following your lead. Because I was right there with you. I think you look at the makeup of the tight end room, and he kind of has the best resume to be the next guy in line, as not just a tight end, but the versatility at fullback. And we really saw him used in this game. And I'm curious to see how it would have looked if Taylor played. But regardless, we saw him used in this game just the way you kind of expect. There were backfield reps. He was in line. You saw it all. And then for him to also catch passes on top of that was just gravy for people to notice that, because it's nice he caught the passes, but just the fact that he was out there being used in the fashion that he was used shows that there's a plan for him. He will be on the roster, and he's going to play a fairly decent role. So production to get a jersey. I mean, for me, I'm not afraid to get a jersey based solely off of blocking skills, even if the stats
I am
aren't
talking
there.
to a guy who had a Thomas Hennessy jersey.
So, exactly. I don't always need the stats to be there. So if he's just pancaking people all year and he has 2 catches for 6 yards, I don't know. That might just be enough.
And I think it may make me like stand, like, especially if you're a listener of the show, like if you see a dude walking through the parking lot in a Beck jersey, like that's probably gonna be Blewett. But yeah, nice 47 jersey. But maybe you probably are you're the wrong person to ask in terms of what jersey should I get, because you definitely have a Hennessy. Didn't you have another one too? You had another one that was a little bit out there, not Hennessy. I think he worked one of the tailgates, but I'm trying to remember who it was.
I had Carl Lawson. I don't have it anymore. I just went through like a whole mass exodus of jersey donations. Jerseys. It was it was really sad seeing all the failed investments, but they were small investments because we know where to buy.
I've thought about it a few. But I thought about it a few times. I wonder, like, is it easy to take off the nameplate and then just replace the nameplate and get a different? Like, how much does it cost to go to like someone who stitches it? Like,
there are like services that do exactly that. I haven't looked into it too much, but I thought about it because I saw at a tailgate someone had it was the 2021 home opener, and someone had a Eccles jersey And I asked him, like, what's the deal with the Eccles jersey? He was a rookie that year. And he told me that it was a Le'Veon Bell jersey, and he got it restitched with a different name and just keeping the same number. So there are services that do it. I haven't really looked into it, though.
Yeah, I wonder how much it costs. Like, if it costs like $20 to just bring it somewhere and do that, like I have an Elijah Moore 8, I have an Aaron Rodgers 8. Like, make that a Cisco. I have the Bell, I have the Sam Darnold for 14. I don't know who's 14 on the is. I don't know who 14 is on the roster right now currently.
Is it not Folk? He's 18, right? One of the court isn't
Folk
Brady
is
Cook
18.
14?
Is he not 4?
No, he's
I don't
4.
remember. To be honest. 4. Yeah, I thought he was 4. I don't know who 14, but like nonetheless, I have 14. I have 26.
That's a good jersey.
I have 8.
That's a starter.
Yeah, Mac. There you go. I'll donate it to you. I have a 2. I have Zach Wilson, even though I did throw a lot of them away or donate them after I moved, just because when you move you got to consolidate. But nonetheless, danger zone. We'll get back to receivers and stuff, trying to keep up with the chat a little bit. But what position do you think we target hardest after the team's cuts? I think it's kind of the positions we talked about, like lack of depth. I would say primarily probably tight end, tackle, receiver, D end, maybe. Like, would it be my top 4? Those are the positions I'm probably the most concerned about. Would you have any difference with those 4, or would you emphasize one specifically?
Definitely tight end. And I've said this a few times, but I feel like there's a good chance that if Jeremy Ruckert can't show us something the next 2 games, someone's going to get cut around the league who's better than him, right? It has to be.
Yeah, I would think so, right? Like, we have some scrubs I think would be replaced, whether it be again Max Mitchell, Carter Warren, even Eric Watts. I know you're an Eric Watts guy, but in terms of like his upside, there's going to be some. I think they'll make I think people maybe overrate it, but maybe like 2 signings will they'll replace a guy, right? What would be your over under for players that they bring in to actually make the 53-man roster? I'd put it at I'd probably put it at 1.5 realistically. Like, I don't think you see a ton of pickups who then actually make the squad. So if I was Vegas, I'd probably put like 1.5 for over under. Would you take the over or the under there?
They did quite a few. I forget what year it was, but there's a recent year where there were like 4, right? Was that maybe 2021? The first year of Salah? I forget exactly when it was.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that would make sense. So I think so 1.5, I would say over. I think 2.
Over.
Because I feel good about tight end. And between tackle and receiver and edge, I think there's got to be at least 1 in there. So I would put it at 2.
So on those 4 spots, who would you say? And again, this is a hard question to answer, and you might want to give multiple. But in those 4 positions, who would be the first guy you cut? And I'll answer your DN question. It's Michael Clemens. But the other 3 spots, who was like the last person on your 53 at that spot who would then get cut for another player? You got tight end, receiver, and tackle.
Yeah, it's got to be Max Mitchell at tackle, just trying to upgrade over him, or if they're going so deep on offensive line to where Warren would be on the roster, because I've seen some 53-man predictions with him. That could happen. So if that's the case, if that's their plan, it could be him. And receiver, if they're going so deep as to, if they find someone they like more than Alan Lazard in that role, could you find a trade for him, even if it's something marginal? I don't think so, but it's something to keep in mind. But I would look first at those back end tackles and, see if they could find an upgrade over them, because those guys are just here as holdovers at this point. They were drafted, relatively early compared to the guys they're competing against. And they are, under contract on the roster, but they weren't added by this regime, and they're also not good. So if, there's a UDFA somewhere else, or, second year UDFA, a guy who's phased out because their team is more deep at tackle, there's a good chance they could be better than either of these players. So I could see that.
And then like receiver, I don't really see it, being honest, unless there's like a guy who's like really, really good out there. But I think they have enough depth at receiver where it's like, yeah, you want a new receiver 3 or receiver 4, but like I'm comfortable with the receiver 5, 6, 7, if that makes sense, with like Pritchett, Brandon Smith, all those type of guys. So I don't see them bringing another guy. Tight end though, if they were to bring in, whoever, I don't know, Kyle Smith at tight end, Do you think it's they carry 4 tight ends at that point, or do you think one of Smart or Rucker are going to be cut? We know Beck's not going to be cut, obviously, at this point, but do you really think they would cut Rucker at this point? Because obviously we would do it, but do the Jets have some infatuation in Long Island? He's at least tough and willing to block, but like I said on Twitter a couple of days ago, when he dropped the pass at practice, like dude can't catch, dude can't blocks. Like, what's the point of him? So do you think they'd actually cut Rucker if they brought somebody in, or do you think it would be Smart first?
I mean, I don't think they would, just because, he was listed first team on that unofficial depth chart. I know it's unofficial, but it was kind of accurate for how they came out in the preseason game. So I don't know. They just have so little behind him that it's just, Stone Smart's not a tight end, in my opinion, for the purpose that they need a tight end to play in this offense.
Yeah.
He's listed at one. Like, if you're desperate, sure. But he's more of Alan Lazard is bigger than him. So he's really a wide receiver in terms of how he'd be used.
Good point.
And then, then the back two guys, Johnson and Kuntz, I don't think are, realistically in the conversation here. So I think he would stay unless there's someone they, really like, they have highly rated in the scouting department who gets waived. And, Donovan Edwards, I think, is, if there's a player like him who they don't necessarily need, but they feel like, okay, he's a better overall player than Rucker. We want him on the roster. We think we'll lose him if he gets waived. Then at that point, I could see, cut Rucker. If you could pick up a replacement, keep someone at a different position that you'd rather have, it could happen. But they do seem to like him and view him as salvageable for some reason that I haven't seen in game, at least in a couple of years at this point.
Yeah. Yeti says an I formation dive with Braylon leading the block has to produce at least 2 yards. No. In terms of like you're talking about, like in terms of Braylon Allen leading the block, I would, I know people they like the size and stuff, but I'm taking Beck over Braylon Allen all day as a blocker. They're the same weight, Well, actually, Beck is heavier, right? Allen's like 235, Beck is like 250. So I'm taking Beck because that's quite literally his job is to block pretty much. So but that's my 3rd and 1 call. Bait them and hit the seam or flats. You're saying like play action with I could see like a play action with Braylon Allen and Brees in the backfield, then hitting somebody in the seam. But in terms of like who's lead blocking, it's Beck, because that's literally his job. Alex says Ruckert is okay. Is there any tight end that might be available for trade? Pitts maybe. I'll just disagree with the first part of that statement. Ruckert is okay. What has he done to be okay? He doesn't catch. He fumbles the ball. He can't block. I wholeheartedly disagree that he's okay. But tight ends that are available for trade, like the only problem with Pitts is he's kind of like a big receiver as well. So for a team who's going to emphasize like 12 personnel, trenches, running the ball, do you want Pitts and Stone Smart in your tight end room? Like Pitts would at that point, like he should be tight end 3, because like you don't want to. He's a quasi receiver, so how do you play them then? Like, okay, they have to take one of the receivers off the field. I don't think Pitts would work, and I'm sure you don't really, unless you do have a trade target at the top of your mind. Like I know people are talking about a couple of, or at least last year, with Myers from the Raiders, because of Brock Bowers coming in, but why are the Raiders getting rid of him? Like I don't really know any names out there. Do you?
I don't know any off the top of my head, but yeah, like on the Pitts note, I think it's the same thing with Smart. Like tight ends in this offense had to be able to block, and that's another thing. Robbie has pointed this out too. Just watching the preseason game, what they've done in practice, the skill position blocking is critical. These guys on the field in this offense now have to be able to block. It's not just as important as catching passes, but almost, because not just the fact that they're a run first team, but the type of plays that they run are going to call for the tight ends and the receivers to make blocks that are critical. Look at the biggest hole that they opened on that first drive with Braylon Allen getting that 14-yard run. As much as the offensive line, you got to give Lazard credit for what he did. That was the most important block in making that happen. So they really need guys
to watch the hold
on
that
all of the skill positions. Yeah, it was close. But I think, and even with Mason Taylor, like very talented pass catcher, I think he'll have a great receiving season, but he's some development that he needs as a blocker. I don't think he comes right in and is a dominant blocker off the get-go. So it's really Andrew Beck right now is the only trustworthy blocker that you have between tight end / fullback. So whoever they're going to pick up, even if he can't catch passes all too well, I think they just need someone who can be relied upon as a blocker, because they just don't have that outside of Beck.
Mm-hmm. A little bit behind the scenes, Nani, while I was looking away from the computer, I keep noticing this light right here, right there. I keep trying to block it with my head. I'm like, I'm just gonna order a freaking light cover. I had to do it. It started really pissing me off. I keep trying to block that stupid light with my head. But yeah, I guess we'll keep going with some of like the skill positions, guys. Specifically the receivers. Beck, we talked about, all pro, put him there now. Ruckert had two tough blocking assignments, specifically in pass protection. Like, you have one-on-one with the ends. It's not always easy for tight ends, but you want to see them at least hold up for 2 seconds. Like, I'm not saying you don't have to hold it for 3 seconds like a tackle, but give me at least like 2 seconds when you're blocking a guy, impede him. One was on Gary. But he got beat at least 2 or 3 times in the blocking game. He didn't do anything as a receiver, so he just didn't. There was nothing.
The play where Cook hit that nice throw over the middle? I forget. I think it was Johnson he threw to. But yeah, Ruckert allowed pressure off the left side that if that ball's not out, when it was out, there was no one in between that defender and Cook. And yeah, like, I know it can be hard. These guys aren't left tackles, but as a tight end, the D end is who you block most of the time, right? So I feel like on that specific play, I get how sometimes, a tight end might, they'll do enough. Eventually the D end gets through them, but for the expectations, they did enough. I didn't feel like that play was like that. He kind of got clubbed immediately. He ripped through and he was passed. It's just that he was really far from the quarterback, because they had two tight ends, and I believe he was in a wide alignment. So he's really far from the quarterback. That's the only reason he didn't get there. But he beat Ruckert really quickly on that. So I feel like that is below the expectation for a tight end in that situation.
Yeah, and then past that, I think Neil Johnson had a catch maybe over the middle in like a check down. Obviously, you had Stone Smart, who showed his athleticism in the open field, followed his blocks well, lowered his shoulder for a touchdown. So well executed screen there by the Jets. So really not a ton from the tight end position. I would say, again, the biggest star from that kind of spot was Beck, for multiple reasons for me. And then past that, we hit on Arian Smith. We hit on Garrett Wilson. Again, he should have had 3 receptions for 30 to 40 yards, in my opinion, in that game. Just in that one drive. So you're still seeing him get open. I like the fact they're getting him in motion and all of that stuff, getting him some free releases, because like I said, I don't think his best position is X. And a lot of people, when I talk about like X, like, oh, you don't think he's number one receiver? Like, again, your number one receiver does not have to be your X. Amon-Ra St. Brown slot receiver is their number one. So I think he's more of a slot to a Z in this offense and just in general. So nice to see him getting moved and kind of creating some separation for him right off the jump. So that was nice. Past that, Tyler Johnson had a catch on check down, turned up the field for a first down. Good job by him there. Past that, we have Brandon Smith, who had 2 receptions for 24-ish yards, something like that. One really, really nice snag. Ball was put out a little bit too far in front of him. He caught the ball well, ran through it, got the first down. So another strong, again, only 2 catches, but still, when the ball is thrown to Brandon Smith, he catches it. So 2 strong preseasons kind of in a row. At least he's building on that. Hopefully he finishes it out. Pritchett, I thought, looked really, really like just fast and explosive.
Yeah.
The one catch for 6 yards he had on the bubble screen. It was like kind of Garrett Wilson Ravens-esque type play where like he didn't get a lot of yards, but he juked the hell out of like 3 or 4 dudes on that one. So that was nice. The catch that he had out of bounds was much more on Adrian Martinez. Adrian Martinez needed to put that ball on him. He put it out of bounds. He made a hell of a play tracking that ball and almost getting 2 feet in bounds. And I think there was another one with Pritchett where he was in the end zone and or maybe not in the end zone, but there's like a vertical ball that he attacked it on, but he's 5'8". He wasn't able to come down with it. But Pritchett was the most impressive of those guys to me. And then you also have it's Quentin Skinner, right, who had that one reception for 24 yards, I think it was, or something like that. It was a delayed slot fade where he like fake stalk block at first, and it went for the slot fade. And I broke that down. It was 10 out of 10 in terms of technique by him for just the sell of the stalk block to the route and then attacking the ball and pulling the ball away from the defender so the defender can't get his arms through his hands was all fantastic. So really like, yeah, like Tyler Johnson, whatever. Lazard got a catch, whatever. Garrett Wilson, okay, didn't do much, even though he should have. But the 3 UDFAs were really the story of the receiver groups. So it's going to make it really interesting at the bottom of the depth chart because all those guys like legitimately flashed very good potential.
Yeah, I really liked Pritchett. Even on punt return, didn't get big numbers, but you could see the quickness, and he made some guys miss. And yeah, with Gibson there, I feel like Gibson would be redundant at this point, and Pritchett has shown more. Gibson didn't play in this game,
Yeah.
but even in training camp, we've heard a lot more of Pritchett than Gibson. So right now, I would lean towards keeping Pritchett, cutting Gibson, but it's still some time. Yeah, and like you said, some of these other, you said it earlier. I think kind of 5 onward, you feel good about that. And we don't know every team's 5th through 7th receiver, but there are a lot of guys in that part of the receiver unit who, relative to UDFAs, reserve future contracts, bottom of the roster guys, have shown you some nice things between last year's preseason and then what they flashed here in this first game and throughout camp so far. So I kind of like that back end. It's just, Jets don't really have a true second or even third receiver. That's where the weakness is. But I think, it's looking like Corley didn't show really anything in this game. You barely hear about him in camp. It's starting to look like some of the returning players from last year, Gibson, Corley, may really need to start stepping it up to keep spots over Pritchett. If Brandon Smith is going to be involved in this conversation, Skinner, like you said, made probably the single most impressive play for a wide receiver in this game. So, yeah, and Skinner also brings that, size element that a lot of these other guys, Pritchett, 5'8", he's more of like your, pure slot option. Skinner at 6'5" brings that jump ball ability that a lot of these other players don't. Brandon Smith is, I think Smith is 6'3", but he's more like possession type receiver, I would say, than jump ball. Yeah. So some interesting decisions at the back end of receiver.
So let me ask you, and we'll do a 53-man roster prediction after the third game. But if Nania was the GM as of right now, and you had to make a 53-man roster, who would be your receivers? And this is you. This is not your prediction of what the Jets will do. Because that when we do our prediction, we'll do what we think the Jets will do, and obviously we'll sprinkle in what we would do. But right now, what would you do at receiver?
I would. So I think the locks are Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, and for me, Tyler Johnson, I think, will be on the team. And Arian Smith, obviously. So beyond that, I think where a change happens between me, my preference and what I'd predict, I think I'm keeping Alan Lazard off. And, I know the blocking is there. I talked about the importance of that, but pass catching wise, I just have very little faith, and I'd rather bet on the upside of some of these other players. So I'm going to keep him off of my personal preference, and I will keep Pritchett, I will keep Skinner and Brandon Smith, and that would be my 7 for wide receiver.
Okay. Yeah, I would probably just keep 6 just because I don't think they're going to emphasize receiver a ton. I'd probably get rid of Skinner out of those guys, just because Brandon Smith has showed it for a whole preseason last year, some really great catches, and then this year obviously having a couple good ones too. But for me, like I think they like the fact that Tyler Johnson can block and all that stuff, a little bit more upside maybe than Lazard. And kind of just stick with Lazard at this point, but I do think they carry him probably. But for my
I think
kind of lockstep with you, I'm just at 6 instead of 7, just based on like roster construction and whatever else. Danger Zone says, do we see a full house backfield formation? You're talking about like a T formation, like basically, which is single back and then 3 running backs behind them, evenly spread out horizontally. Once maybe you see that, Beck, Braylon out, probably not, right? Like, how do you? I don't know what you run from that really. Like, I'm not a T formation aficionado. It's like it's not really something that's used in the NFL nowadays. Maybe once, but obviously not often. But I know what you're getting at because they have all of these running backs that we all really like. I guess actually transitioning to running back, Brees will get traded. Wanted Brees to be the guy, but I have doubts now. Running backs this game. Braylon Allen, really good job on that cutback. Like people give the offensive line all the credit, but Braylon Allen deserves some as well. Really good job. He got through 3 reads before getting to that cutback, so really good job getting through the reads efficiently. Isaiah Davis only had like 2 yards per carry or whatever it was, but I don't think he had a lot of great opportunities, and he kept falling forward and making the most out of it. And obviously, you have an elite IQ play by him, scrambled by Justin Fields throwing his hands up. If he doesn't do that, the linebacker probably turns around and tackles Justin Fields, or is at least there. So he kind of created a touchdown there. So excellent job by him. Breece Hall didn't really do much. The thing I'll say is be careful who you're watching on Twitter when they're breaking down runs and run schemes and stuff, because it's very easy to pause a play and say, oh, look at this big hole. You should have cut through that. But then you don't know the reads. You don't know how they're supposed to attack it. You don't know what they're doing. Breece, and I think Robbie did a break on this, right? I think he had to put like a 10-minute video or whatever.
Yeah, he did.
Was it? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I know he put out maybe that one and then the sauce play as well in the run game, which we'll get to the defense. But his first 2 reads on that were very, very good. You want to get vertically quickly on duo. So I can't kill Breece Hall for it. Like, yeah, is there a world where maybe he would have noticed that and cut back? Sure. But is that an expectation in that specific scheme with duo, especially when the outermost defender is kicked out and the guy inside of him has inside leverage on the Jets, the outside guy has inside leverage on the defender, and then the guy inside of that has outside leverage on the inside guy. So there's a perfect hole for him to at least attack. And then by the time he gets there, it's kind of it clogs up. But I can't kill Breece Hall for that one. And trust me, I've killed Breece Hall before, but I'm not going to be unrealistic and just blow smoke up people's asses or whatever to stick with the group. But not much there from Breece in terms of like opportunity. And then obviously Donovan Edwards, right? A guy who fell, like, I don't remember exactly, Nani. I don't know if you remember, but did he fall because of character concerns, or did he kind of just like fall off? Because I know at the first year he was like kind of like not like a phenom, but he was very, very highly touted his freshman year, I believe. And then he
it was his sophomore year. He really exploded, but he had 2 more years after that. And yeah, he just kind of his production fell off. They had Blake Corum, who's on the Rams now. He overtook him. There was another guy who I think is also in the league now. But he just didn't really step up into being their top guy, and his numbers fell off a little bit. But early on, he was on a trajectory to be a star for one of the best teams in college football. And I still thought he was ranked by the consensus as a draftable prospect, the only UDFA the Jets signed who was. And his athletic testing was great. He had that early peak at Michigan. He really has a profile of a guy who should have been like a 6th, 7th round pick. So yeah, he was always very interesting to watch, especially in a unit where it seemed like he had no chance. But now with this game, I feel like he's creating a conversation at least.
Yeah, it was a really good game, good explosion. I think he read he read the offensive line well. He had a 70-yard touchdown that was taken away. I forget who the center was, but I don't know what broadcast he had. If he had the Jets broadcast, is it Anthony Beck? Anthony Beck had he had the most homer take that wasn't a hold. It was a hold all day on that center. Like he sprung it free, but he was trying his absolute best. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't have called it. It's like, no, it's definitely a hold. But really good explosion by Donovan Edwards. And it's a thing where it's like, yeah, we don't know if the Jets want to keep 4 or 5 running backs, but at this point, like Breece Hall may be gone next year. So do you want to get rid of a guy who you think you may have hit on as a UDFA? With Breece Hall most likely, not being a Jet next year. So to me, you just keep your best 53. Like, I'm not going to get overly critical about like, oh, roster construction. And, oh my God, they didn't keep 5 DNs and they kept, 4 running backs. Like, I'm not going to go crazy. Just keep your best 53. And just based on that game, obviously we have a lot more to go. Like, why get rid of Donovan Edwards, especially again, when Breece Hall may be leaving or most likely will be leaving. And you have a team who's going to really emphasize the ground game. Like, what happens if 1 or 2 of these guys get hurt? So to me, I would like to see him on the roster specifically after that game, but really good job from him. And then kind of what do you think about the rest of the running backs?
And like on Edwards, I think I saw someone earlier say that it was, not actually that impressive. The 3rd-team offensive line was doing really good against 3rd-team defensive line, but I think you and I both know when that happens, when guys are just putting up numbers and it
Mhm.
doesn't actually mean they're playing well or impressing.
Yeah.
But I felt like this was a legit standout performance from him for the reasons you mentioned. So I think it was definitely a stock riser for him. Other running backs, yeah, I think Brees didn't have much to work with. Like you said, seemed like there was a hole, not actually realistic, that he should have
Mhm.
gotten to that. I also feel like last year there were some examples early in the season, and look, he didn't play well. Like, I'm not making excuses, but there it feels like Allen sometimes has gotten lucky with his blocking, and I'm not saying that diminishes his
Mhm.
play either. I just feel like sometimes he gets. There were times last year where he had big holes to run through when Hall didn't. That kind of happened here, and great vision on
Yeah.
that play too, obviously.
Yeah.
But Davis, didn't have a chance to do too much. So another interesting part of this, like, does Nwangwu have a chance to make this team? I think he's their best kick returner. He had the best return in this game. Was out to the 35, I think. He made multiple people miss. Scored a
Yeah.
touchdown last year, and kick return is going to be key this year with the touchback coming out to the 35. I think last year it didn't happen. They
Yeah.
moved it out to the 30. They thought that was going to influence returns. It went up a tiny bit, but it didn't really change. But 35, I don't think teams are going to gift you that. I think I think that is enough to push teams into, like, okay, we're going to force returns. We'd rather do that than, here, 65-yard touchdown drive. That's all you need to score on us. So I think kick returns are going to be important. Does that help Kine Nwangwu potentially make this team? He's listed as a running back, but he's just a pure kick returner. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, you saw Donovan Edwards returning punts and stuff. Like, are they trying to be like, they were like, hey, like, damn, he made some plays. Let's try him out and see if he can fill some special teams roles for us. But he doesn't ask it. Like, was I on crack? Like, did I just miss the 35 thing? Because I noticed it during the game too. Like, I
No
don't
one, no
remember
one
them
really
making
talked
that.
about it. It really, I kind of
Yeah.
forgot about it until the preseason game started. It really flew under the radar. But yeah, it's the same rules as last year. It's just 35-yard line. Your 35-yard line for the touchback versus 30 last year. So yeah.
You get like 25, you get 25 yards. You're talking about you're in field goal range. Like I think teams are going to be returning a lot more this year. I don't think people are just going to like, hey, take it out at the 35. Like, you're talking about a first down or two and you can kick a field goal. That's really far, So I think the return game is going to be back for sure. But yeah, it's I don't know because past McGuano or however you say his name, I forget every time. But like, is there anybody else there who we trust? Is it Pritchett? Could it be Donovan Edwards and Pritchett back there? Like, that's really, again, an interesting thing to watch in these preseason games coming up. And in terms of that, I don't see a role for Gibson on this team from Christian. I don't either, because realistically, what has he done since that first game against the Buffalo Bills of his career? Nothing. Like, doesn't make catches, returns balls that are inside the 10-yard line pretty consistently, muffing punts. He muffed at least like 2 or 3 to even that rookie year. So Gibson hasn't done anything but that one play, which was amazing. But you gotta, it's what have you done for me lately type of league. So I think Gibson's almost a lock to not make this team. I haven't even really heard his name at all in the offseason. So Danger Zone says he just won Madden 26 giveaway. G5's Madden 620. Oh yeah, that's awesome. I feel like I didn't you just win something else, Dano? Didn't I see you like tweeting something? You won like something else, or I don't know. I feel like Dano's a lucky person, but Greg Rollo, Wishbone, Ronan says if you don't think they're keeping Lazard, you don't know Jack. I'm hoping that he's just saying in general, because Nani and I both very specifically said that we believe the Jets are keeping Lazard. We personally wouldn't. So if that's directed at us, Ronan, then listen with your ears. It's not that hard. I think the great saying is you have 2 ears and one mouth, even though you're typing. So 2 ears, 2 hands. But relax, dude. We literally just said that Lazard is going to make the team based on what we think the Jets will do. Should he make the team, in my opinion? No, because what has he done? Okay, past that, with quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, I guess we'll transition to the defense. Let's start from back end or front end. What do you think with the defense? You take it away on the defense. What position group you want to hit first?
Let's start with the D tackles. I mean, it was a big opportunity with no Q, no Coward also, and
yeah,
J2 Fele stepped up. We touched on him a little bit earlier, and he's been a star of your film reviews and just highlight reels in general because he really flashed in this game. But yeah, him and specifically him, but also Leonard Taylor really seized that opportunity, made cases for their roster spots. And in Tufele's case, he's trending towards, could he be the second player in this rotation? I would lean Coward because I think he's a better fit in the starting lineup as someone
Yeah.
who could stop the run a little bit more. But I
Hmm.
mean, Tufele showed athleticism that I didn't expect from him. Not that I'm an expert on his career, but you look up his testing and his numbers. His RAS score was in the sixes. He only has half a sack in his career, so I didn't expect much of anything from him, let alone plays that, again, like we said, sometimes guys will put up numbers in the preseason and it's not actually impressive, but the sack that he had was tremendous, and multiple other pressures where he just cooked the guy in front of him. And one of them was the Packers starting guard, Aaron Banks, who they just signed to monster deal, and he just cooked him. So I did not expect to see that. And it was a legitimately great performance. Doesn't mean anything's coming. Tack McKinley was awesome last preseason, but he definitely was impressive.
Yeah, the rotation is going to be interesting. I do think it's Cowart with that first team with Q, just because he's a better fit at like nose tackle. Second group, I think it is Tufele and Leonard Taylor. It's just gonna be interesting to see which one of those guys they play at nose tackle, because I don't think either of those guys are a true nose tackle. So a little bit light in the pants.
Is Derek Noddy on your 53-man roster right now?
I don't. I honestly, I'd have to like look at mine and like really think about it. But like, does he have to be like, who's the backup D tackle at nose tackle? Like, who? I don't think Tufele could play it, or based on just his like body composition, and Taylor, I think he's a three tech. So that's my concern. Like, they're very light in the pants at backup D tackle. So does Noddy have to make it? And they carry three. I think they carry five. And I think not. If you did Noddy or is it Mathis? Who's I don't know how big he is though, but he seems to play pretty physical. But I guess Noddy's like D tackle five. But I think Taylor or Tufele are going to be the ones in like pass downs to sub in for Cowart. But I'm so mad at I did 31 reviews this offseason, and the last two guys were Tufele and Weaver. I'm like, nah, like I don't got to do those guys. They're probably just going to be like camp bodies going to be cut. I'm so mad at myself for not watching Tufele, but yeah, like really good effort on the one sack, cleaning up Love in the open field. So good athleticism there. The awareness on the fumble recovery for a touchdown. He actually got his hands up to deflect the pass, but Taylor tripped the quarterback, so he picked up the ball there. And then, like Nani said, go on my Twitter, go Jorby31, or I don't know if you put on Jets X Factor or you or whoever put it out, but go watch that play. I think it's like a 3 or 4 minute breakdown of that sack, and just in terms of like anticipating the B gap being open based on the defensive front versus the offensive front. The swipe move he used, the bend ankle flexion, it was all really good. He tried to knock the ball out. So hell of a job by Tufele. I think he's almost a lock at this point. So I'm a little bit encouraged about our defensive tackle depth now. But yeah, I guess Noddy has to make it almost. Past that, DNs. Clemens, another stupid penalty. The backups, Watts got burned on that one read option. He's just very tight. And then he had a penalty out of bounds, so not great for either one of those backup DNs. Didn't really notice McGregor much. And then Will McDonald had a really nice backside chase down tackle. I broke that one down too. Really good job by him there. And then also he had that spin move on the right tackle, which should have been called a hold. It wasn't, but you had a stuff or a run stop. I think it's stuff. I don't know the difference between a stop and a stuff. They're both within like 2 yards of the line of scrimmage to me, but he had a stuff stop, McDonald, and then a should be hold. So hell of a job by him. Oh, and I skipped over Leonard Taylor. And I think Leonard Taylor gets overlooked a little bit in the run game. I think everybody just sees his sacks and his pressures and says, oh, he's just a pass guy. But like, I'm not sure if you watched the review or whoever else did in here, but there was more splash plays in the run game than the pass game last year, which I didn't expect. I'm not saying I still think he's like more upside in the pass, but plenty of plays in the run. He had a few nice plays in the run game this game. He forced the hold on the right guard and he beat him really cleanly on one play. And then he had the fumble or the forced fumble for this touchdown for the Jets. So awesome job by the defensive line minus Clemens and Watts, I would say, obviously, with those stupid penalties.
Yeah, for sure. And it just felt like even without Q and Coward out there, that the Jets were controlling the line of scrimmage for the majority of the game. So it definitely was a positive from top to bottom. And we'll see how the rotation shakes out and everything. But I'm curious to see if this sort of situation works for them because they've tried this route next to Quinn Williams, really with 3 guys in a row of, from Rankins to Quentin Jefferson to Kinlaw, all kind of not the same players, but they're all more like downhill, athletic, pass rush first type of guys. So maybe this works differently, putting him next to Coward. And, like you said with Taylor, he's got some more run game potential. See if this works. But on paper, obviously, there isn't much there in terms of proven production, but they seem to like some of these guys, and they backed it up in this first game. So I'm curious to see if Tufele can keep it going the next 2 games, because it might have just been one great preseason game, but I see that sack and some of the pressures he had, and it just seems like that isn't the player he's been. Like, he may just be a different, who knows? He could have had a crazy offseason where he really reinvented himself athletically. It's
or
not
even just a scheme thing.
It doesn't happen a lot.
He was with the Cardinals for 4 years, and they're more of like, at least I believe what he said, like they're more read and react. So maybe the Jets are letting him attack a little bit more. Maybe that unlocked him. Like, it could be just as simple as that.
Last 3 years for
Bengals. Sorry, I thought it was
yeah.
I was thinking of freaking leaky photo. My
photo.
bad. Yeah. We'll go back to the chat a little bit, and we'll jump back to the rest of the defense. Which wide receiver or 2 do you think ends up being the odd man out? In terms of like the guys who are making kind of noise, I think, or not even noise, but like the guys we'd expect, I would say the odd men out that people are kind of talking about in the 53-man roster are probably Corley, Skinner, Gibson, and Corley, Skinner, Gibson. Is there another one I'm missing? And Brandon Smith. I think those are probably the 4 guys who are going to end up off the roster. Again, I would personally carry Brandon Smith or Skinner over Lazard, just because I don't know what Lazard really offers other than blocking. But like, you have a guy like Brandon Smith who's a similar size, who I think as long as he's a decent blocker, I do think I saw the banner. It's just like, can Brandon Smith block decently? I do think in general Lazard's blocking is a little bit overrated. I think he's a solid blocker, but not an elite blocker. I think a lot of people watch that one play with the Packers where he kind of like knocked 3 guys down, and oh my God, it's an amazing blocker now. But I think he's just kind of decent or solid at it. But I would say Corley, Skinner, Gibson, and whoever else. I can't remember all 4. Do you agree with that 4, or do you think one of those guys may? And I know you said Skinner in your personal one, but like predicting what the Jets do.
I mean, like we said, I think Lazard will be there. So yeah, I think it'll be 6 deep. I like you said, my personal preference was 7. You went 6. And even if I looked at it more, I might take a 7th off, which would probably be Skinner, and keep Smith. So same as you. I think it'll be 6 deep, especially, we're talking about, will they claim a tight end off waivers? Will they keep Edwards or keep Keeney? So looking at some of these other skill positions and the fact that they might go a little deeper there, especially because this will be a run first team, I think it's going to be 6. So with Lazard, Johnson, Reynolds, and Garrett locked in, and Smith, kind of like, is there one spot being competed for here? And that would, in my opinion, be Pritchett. That could be the case.
Yeah, and like with the roster, in terms of like teams also will weigh like, hey, if we cut one of these guys, which one has the better chance of being picked up? Like, I think you have a better chance of sneaking a Skinner or Brandon Smith onto the practice squad, where with Donovan Edwards like hype coming at one in his sophomore year at Michigan, and then even coming out of the draft a little bit with like supposed to be a drafted guy. He's probably picked up, especially the strong preseason. So it's also about who can you sneak onto there as well. Pat says we I guess we have the slowest receiving core in the NFL with only one G5 Garrett. Wilson, Lazard slow, Tyler Johnson slow. Yes. Run great routes, and Reynolds slow. Reynolds is not slow. Reynolds is decently fast. I'm not gonna say it's fast, but Reynolds is, I would say, average to plus average speed. So Reynolds isn't slow. And you also forgot Arian Smith, who ran a 4.3, and I think he's like, his actual speed on the field is a low 4.3, high 4.2 type of guy. Like, he's very, very fast. So I don't know, like looking at other receiver cores in the NFL, again, are we knowledgeable about who's the fastest receiver core? Like, you can have fast guys and they could be John Ross. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter. But the only thing I'll disagree with there is that Reynolds slow because he's not. At least with the Lions, he was not slow. I'd say average to plus average, but trade pickup. Like I thought it was interesting the other day that guy Isaiah Bond was out there. Browns picked him up seemingly in like 35 seconds. So he's not available, but I don't think so. I don't think they're going to make a pickup. And I also want to mention this too, like Pritchett. I do think Pritchett's going to be receiver 5, receiver 6 in this roster, and he seems to be pretty fast as well. So maybe speed's a little bit overrated at receiver. Like, yeah, you want to have at least one really, like a burner to open up the offense a little bit. But past that, it's more about route running, nuance, all that type of stuff. Like, there's been plenty of guys who aren't the fastest guys who are very good receivers. Larry Fitzgerald, Keenan Allen is not a fast guy, but stupidly good at running routes. Like, there's plenty of guys. DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, with physicality. It's like it's not just fast that matters. So I don't look at their core. I'm like, oh my God, they're too slow. Get somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean,
okay.
I think it's like pretty average speed overall. Like Garrett Wilson's pretty fast for a 1. Aaron Smith is elite. I just looked up. Pritchett had a 4.42 at his pro day.
Fast.
So I don't know. They have guys who fit their roles. Like not everyone in the unit needs to be a burner.
Yeah, right. And Reynolds is, I would say, average to slightly plus average speed. Like I think, and again, I don't, injuries and all that stuff, but like if I had to kind of like identify what 40 he would run, at least with the Lions, I would say like a 4.48, 4.49. Like I don't think he's slow. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think Keenan makes it? Gun to your head right now. Do you think Nagwanu is? I would say no for me, just because of the Don Edwards stuff, and they find somebody else. Yeah,
I think it, especially like there's basically 2 kick returners now. So even though kick returns, I think will be more important, the single kick returner is kind of less important because you still need to have 2 guys back there, and they could kick it to either side. So I think they would rather, he doesn't bring anything else besides the kick returning. So I think that's going to keep him off, and they'll find Isaiah Davis we talked about is a good. I'm not sure how much he's been used this year in this training camp as a kick returner, but he has some potential. Pritchett obviously has been doing punts. He could be solid there. Edwards. So I think they'd rather just try to figure it out with players who could fill other roles.
David asks, has Nadi done anything? I haven't heard Nadi's name once this offseason, really. So I don't know. But like then again, it's trenches.
I thought you said my name. I was like, did I bring anything to the show? No. Like,
no, he's done nothing. Yeah, I haven't heard his name once this offseason. Then again, he's trenches. He's a D tackle. How much are people really noticing? A run stuffing D tackle in practice. So I don't know, but I think he makes it just because again they don't have a run stuffer past like Coward a little bit, but who's that second unit guy? On 3rd and 1 or whatever. If Coward's gassed, like who are you putting in there? So I think Nadi does make it, but he hasn't done anything. But like watching his film, I thought he was at least a backup level run stuffer. Like I'm not saying a starter or anything like that, but I thought he's a rosterable player. But we haven't heard his name. But it's also kind of just what happens in training camps with D tackles, unless you're rushing the passer. So I'm not sure how much it actually matters, how much we hear the name or not.
Yeah, he's a hard guy for us to like. They may love what he's doing. He started with Tufele. It's just that what he does will never get the beat reporters' attention, so it's just hard for us to really know. So he might still be in a good standing with them. It's just kind of hard to tell.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on JJ's latest tweets? I don't know if there's new ones today. He seems to be really confident he's going to have a huge year. That injury is so hard to come back from. So basically, like, to make it simple, I think that all elite athletes are going to be overly confident in themselves, but just based on historic trends, you're not going to have the greatest year after you tear your Achilles. Like he might be a solid player, but do I think he's going to be peak JJ in 2025? I don't. I think you're looking at I think JJ is probably be better in 2023 than he was in 2025, and I think JJ will be better in 2026 and 2027 than he was in 2025. It's just like, now he is a player who relies more on like technique, power, run stuffing, and like a decent pass rusher because of effort. So he's not a guy like if Will McDonald tore his Achilles, like it would be awful because he's an explosive guy. But yeah, like I think all elite athletes are going to be overly confident. He's not going to come out there and be like, yeah, I think I'm gonna have a decent year. I don't know, my ankle's kind of, or my Achilles is still kind of hurting. Like he's been itching to go. He's watched his team play 15, now 16 games without him, not practicing, all that stuff. So like he's itching to get back at it, but he's going to be overly confident. But I'm still expecting a little bit of not a down year for JJ, but I don't think he's going to light it up, being realistic.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Alex says, what do you guys think about Jamin Davis if Quincy leaves in the offseason? Hopefully he doesn't. Could he fill in? So you're saying, yeah, you want Quincy to stick around. Jamin Davis, I'm not 100% sure exactly what happened with the Commanders. Maybe you do, Nanya, like why he fell off so hard. But I think he may be the guy who's in on base. Like I think it's him or Ball who if they are in a 4-3 situation, it's going to be one of those two guys. I think Davis got reps earlier in this game, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Correct me if I am.
He started.
Okay, yeah. So he started. So he's going to be that third linebacker, probably that strong side linebacker for the Jets in those type of situations. But obviously he was a first or a second round pick. A lot of physical upside. Flamed out with the Commanders. Do I think he could fill in for Quincy, who 2 years ago was an all-pro linebacker and at least a very solid starting linebacker? I think that's a leap to take with a guy who got cut and is now kind of an okay player. I don't think he's going to fill in for Quincy, but I do think that maybe he can make more of an impact than we expect this year, because who's that third linebacker? We really haven't talked about it a lot. And like, I don't know how much teams run base, and obviously it's more nickel now in today's NFL, but you're going to run base probably 20% of the time, maybe something like that. Hard to put my finger on it, but what do you think about Jamin Davis?
Yeah, I wrote about him earlier this week, but first round pick. He had an elite athletic profile, but didn't work out. He really was exploited in coverage quite a bit, but he had good numbers for tackling in terms of low missed tackles. So I think as a strong side linebacker playing in base packages, usually you're playing against the run situations. So, that could favor him to be productive this year in terms of just use his athleticism to make tackles and pursue versus had to be as responsible in coverage as he would as a starter. So I'm not sure long term. It's not impossible that he could turn it around just like Quincy did as a lower draft pick at a similar stage of a similar age. Quincy was a year younger than Davis is right now, so it's not impossible that he could still turn it around. He has tremendous tools, but he did get waived 3 times last year, so it's definitely not something to count on. But in this specific role, I think it's a good fit for him to potentially have a solid resurgent season, similar to what Quan Alexander did that one year with the Jets. I think in this role as the third linebacker, just kind of come in as a ball of energy, athletic, and just focus on kind of pursuit and tackling against other teams' heavy personnel packages. I think that could be something that he does well. And he made two stops in this game around the line of scrimmage. So I think it could be a good role for him.
Yeah, let's hit on the rest of the linebackers before we go back to the chat and then hit on the secondary for the Jets. But yeah, Jamin Davis, I thought looked okay. Quincy had a nice, a few nice plays. Tackle, he had a tackle. I remember Sherwood had a tackle. I remember that was pretty good. Take down an offensive lineman. Past that, Ball, I didn't really notice much of other than the penalty, which was pretty egregious. He's got to be a little bit smarter there, like in terms of that guy like kind of letting up and taking the angle out of bounds. So bad penalty there. He got reamed out. And then Maui Noah, he made a really nice play where I think he forced a hold on an interior offensive lineman. He shot the A gap really, really quickly on a play. He guessed run, and he was right. And he forced a hold. I believe it was a hold, if not a stuff. So good play there by him, but he also missed the tackle because he left his feet. And then there was one play where he was caught in traffic where he was out of position. He closed ground too quickly on the line of scrimmage and then got lost, and the running back kind of hit right where he was supposed to be. So I think a little bit up and down for Maui Noah. But any other notes from the linebackers this game?
No, I think you mostly hit on it. I honestly, that's probably the position I had the least kind of specific focus on, other than Davis at the beginning. So I definitely appreciate the notes on Maui Noah.
Yeah. We have a super chat. Marvin Guns couldn't watch the game this past Saturday because of the NFL Network showed the Chiefs Cardinals here in Quincy. You should have like tweeted me or something, Marvin. If you went to the Jets website, it was on the Jets website. You could have watched it. That's how I watched it. And then it started buffering, and I was like, I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna go watch in another spot. I went to Fubu, and then it was the Packers broadcast. I'm like, I was like, I'll deal with the buffering and listen to Jets homerism. Because I like Iron Eagle. I think it was Iron Eagle and Beck, right? So yeah, I went back, but Marvin, they carried the last one on the Jets website, so I'm assuming they'll do the same thing this game as well. So if you can't find it in your local TV networks, etc., even though I feel like I pay for like 1,000 different streaming services and I still don't get all the games to stuff, it's like brutal. But yeah, the Jets website has them, so do not overlook that. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to get back to where we were because now the chat's actually filling up a little bit. But thank you for the super chat, Marvin. Again, Jets website for that. Did you watch it on the Jets website or where'd you watch it?
It was on NFL Network, so I just watched it on YouTube TV. Had it so
Packers broadcast.
It was a Packers. It was pretty good though. Kevin Harlan does their game, so he's obviously I think one of my favorites. And the color guy was John Kuhn. He was pretty good. He wasn't really a homer. He was calling out the Packers for getting stomped throughout the game. So we should enjoy this. So I don't know what the regular season is going to hold. So the fact that the Jets humbled the Packers for a week, had them doing push-ups at practice the next day, I'm enjoying that for right now because I don't know how much we're going to get. So.
Yeti says Leonard Taylor looked like a ripped linebacker last year. Could be last call eyes. I guess your eyes are going a little bit, but he put on some weight. Maybe a little bit, but like he held up in the run game even last year relatively well. More than I think more than people expected him to, or at least even acknowledge. Because again, the reviews out there, it's probably a 25 play review, and I think like 13 to 15 of them are like highlights in the run game. So he actually made some plays there. But yeah, maybe a little bit. I don't know. Corley's Mims 2-0. I guess in terms of like busts, Mims was taken earlier. They're definitely different players, but at least Mims had flashes. Like he had that 4-game stretch against it was Pats, Dolphins, Chargers. Was there another game? I remember those 3 teams specifically that he like balled out versus, and then he just Salmon. They brought in Keelan Cole, who then destroyed his confidence for whatever reason because Keelan Cole is a superstar, all that stuff. So, let's see. Irv Charles is starting on the pup, right? That's another good one I haven't thought about at all, but that's a good call, David. Irv Charles, what happens when he comes back? Like, does he take a guy's spot and is he on the team? Because he's a special teams ace. So is he going to?
Well, he's got to be on the initial
53
for them to keep him on pup. So he's going to have to take an initial spot. So that's definitely something to keep, assuming that they want him back at some point, think he'll be back unless they put him on season ending IR. They do have to keep him on that initial 53. Then they could put him on pup so they could bring him back at some point. So that's another factor to think about.
Cato got us. I think they cut Beck for roster. They literally they played him as tight end 1, fullback 1 last game. They're not cutting back. I will put my life on that. It's not happening.
That's a lot.
He will be rostered. My life on Beck. What about a trade for W for Winston? Let's see. Why? Realistically, why? It's we unless Tyrod somehow has a really long lingering injury, which it seems like he may be ready for week 1 or at least the latest like week 2. I'm not trading for Winston unless if Tyrod broke his leg and they needed a backup, sure, but I'm not trading a pick for Winston for 1 week of being a backup. In my opinion, it's just not necessarily worth it. I love it when we call pro. Yeah, it's obviously like I'm not calling receivers slow. It's all relative to other receivers. It's like I say Michael Clemens sucks at football. Do I mean he sucks? Like, can I beat Michael Clemens at playing DN in the NFL? No, but it's all relative to their peers. That's how you have to look at it. It's like,
small, 295-pound offensive lineman.
Yeah. Stone Smart's small at 6'4", 225. Like it's all relative to their to who they play with. So. The position of concern for me is backup OT, Okafor and Mitchell flat out stink, and Warren is not too far behind them. I would say Warren has flat out stunk as well. At least Mitchell has some positional versatility. And Okafor, what I'll say about him is he was kind of like what Josh Myers was for the Packers last year at center. Okafor was at right tackle for the Steelers. Like when he played right tackle for the Steelers, he was a low end starter to a solid backup. So I'm not sure how much you've watched of him with his Steelers, but he was actually okay there. Again, I would sign up for him as a backup if he is that same player. Now it's been 2 years since he was that player, so you never know what can happen in a year or two with players. But I wouldn't lump him with those guys. And it seems like he played with the second unit, but he came out pretty quickly. So it seems like they didn't want to get him injured or anything like that, unless they just pulled him to see what Carter Warren and Max Mitchell had. But it seems like I tried to focus on him for a little bit, and he had some bad plays, but then he was out. I don't think he played a lot of reps, which may key like, hey, he's the primary backup swing tackle. But what I would say is, like, if you haven't checked out the which you really want to watch it, Okafor review. If you don't, I get it, but go watch it. Like he actually played decently well with the Steelers. He was not like an outcast. Like Mitchell and Warren have been much worse so far in their careers than Okafor has been. So he's the backup tackle to me, assuming he is what he was with the Steelers, which again, 2 years ago, I don't know. Niguano also does kick coverage too. Why not? Remember, he strip sacked somebody on Seattle game and work, and they recovered it. Right. Niguano, like I think initially I was going, like I had him on my pick 3, but the problem is with Edwards playing like this, like do you carry 5 running backs and a fullback, which is kind of like people lumping with running back. So are you carrying 6 running backs on this roster? I don't know. So let's see. Josh Cribbs was fast as hell, still on the field. Yep. Brandon Smith got first team reps for the first time against the Giants, a chance to be the Lazard replacement. Did you hear about that at all? Is that true, Nanya, that he got some first team reps? If he did, that may be a key.
I didn't see that. Not saying it's wrong. I'm just not entirely sure.
Yeah. If he is, then like, hey, again, as long as he could just be decent at blocking, like he has a similar size. So I would love it, just because he's how many like nice contested catches has this guy made in preseason. Again, it doesn't always transfer, but still. If Edwards goes for 40 yards on 12 carries tomorrow, that whole chat will change. If Tufel isn't going to sack the same, just watch the rest of the preseason before we make cut predictions. Well, again, I don't know. It's nonetheless, I'm going to move on. Kiko, Tony Adams, good camp. I thought, so I guess we'll transition to safeties really quickly because of this question. Tony Adams, I didn't notice him a ton in coverage. He actually did make 2 nice plays in the run game. One play he like filled in, the receiver inserted into the C gap. I think he took him on, started the tackle, and then there was another one where he was physical and either started the tackle or brought the guy down. I think Tony Adams so far in his career, the biggest thing he struggled with has been, making plays in the run game, and he showed nice physicality in this game, in his preseason game. So limited sample size for Tony Adams in his preseason game, and I would say slight stock up. Cisco obviously didn't play a lot. Nice to see him moving around a bit. He had that one play where like a hit on a receiver deep down the middle, which was nice, but still not much there because he didn't play a ton. I would say past that, Oliver got involved in the run game a little bit, and then what's his name? Alabama's Moore actually had a few nice plays. I would say like 2 or 3 nice plays, getting involved in the run game, being really physical in the box. And the one play on a screen, I don't know, receiver screen, tight end screen, running back screen, whatever it was, but a screen where Malachi Moore forced a hold because he took on the receiver with aggression and taking on the block and then forced the hold. So I would say stock up for kind of everybody in that safety room. I didn't really notice Oliver in a bad way or a good way. So I guess like him is just neutral, whatever. But Adams, Cisco, and Moore, I would say stock up slightly in this game, even though, again, limited sample size.
Yeah, and with Cisco, interesting usage for him. I mean, he was moving around a lot. You saw him near the line of scrimmage. He would creep up, he would fall back. So it was interesting to see how they use the safeties in this game. This could be a decent position for the Jets. I feel like it's maybe there's not a superstar in this unit, but it could be one of their deeper spots. If, Malachi Moore is a pretty NFL ready type of guy, I think, relative to a 4th round pick. You've obviously Oliver is an experienced, versatile backup who I think is pretty solid for that role between both corner and safety. So it could be a decent position for the Jets. And I think that's mainly what you want out of safety. There really aren't many superstar safeties left in the league. It's kind of harder for them to make huge difference than I think in past eras. But as long as you don't have huge mistake makers at this position, I think you could be in a good spot, and they might be able to do that. And Cisco's a volatile player. You talked about it, but he also has the potential to give you 3 or 4 really good interceptions, quality interceptions,
Mhm.
where he's breaking on a route. So it's an underrated position to look at in this defense that could, I think, be a higher ranked group than maybe we expect it to be.
Yeah, yeah. Cisco, it's more like the volatility in the run game. It just was brutal a little bit with the Jaguars. So hopefully he can fix that up. And with the Jets tackling and stuff, maybe he fixed it up. This is, I guess, a question kind of specifically for you, Nania, because you watch on YouTube Plus apparently. But do they give you every game? I'm not sure if he's referring to every single
No, that
NFL
was
game or just the Jets games.
no, that was just the national NFL Network game.
Got you. Kind of, so David, we hit this earlier on in the show, but we kind of said the same thing. Like he's an okay player and he kind of talks like he's a superstar, but we hit on that earlier. So for time's sake, we won't hit on it again. Any news on JBC since he has those medical issues? I haven't heard anything. I don't think he's gonna
Yeah,
make the roster.
I
Maybe
haven't heard anything.
yeah, maybe practice squad guy. Warren is worse than both Mitchell and Okafor. He runs at threes at right tackle. Yeah, Warren is brutal, dude. Again, like you're comparing bad to bad here, but Warren versus Mitchell, I think you can argue it both ways. Warren has 2 years of control. Mitchell only has one. So if you want to keep, one as, if you want to, okay, long-term guy, higher upside, whatever, okay, keep Warren. But Mitchell can play tackle and guard. So are you keeping your second tackle, backup tackle? Are you keeping Mitchell over Warren at this point, even though Warren has those 2 years of control, but still, like, hopefully there's a better backup tackle next year. So who even cares about that second year of control?
Yeah, I think Mitchell's and this is still being really bad, but I think Mitchell is still far enough ahead of Warren to be worth that. Because I don't think that extra year with Warren really is going to amount to much anyway. So, but like you
Mm-hmm.
said, hopefully there's something else out there. It just feels like I know like what is the bar for a third tackle, but there's never been a moment where Max Mitchell or Warren has come in and not really destroyed the offense. So I think you can do a little better. But again, like it's a low bar, but I still feel like they're not quite to that level.
Uh-huh. This is a good point by David too, because they did do this with Condrington last year. Like, hey, if he balls out in the preseason, but you just don't have a spot for him on your roster, could you trade him for a 6th or 7th round pick? I think it's very possible. So that's a good point. Yeti, I saw this question and I Googled it. Is apparently he ran a 4.53. I don't know if that's official or whatever, but like people consider that slow nowadays. And like Wayne Corbett was always like twitchy and a little bit fast. So, I don't know. Greg Rollo, I appreciate you. Danger Zone says AZ Thomas is slow, but I pledge that he would dust me in the 40s. And not, just being a little bit anti here. I don't even think he's that slow. I think he tested slow, but I think he's kind of like an average speed corner. I don't think he's slow or fast. So, let's see. Edwards isn't making the team. I don't know, man. It's hard. It's just hard, especially if he keeps playing the way he did. But right now, like he's like my 52nd, 53rd, 54th player. Like it's just gonna be interesting to see what he does, because if he keeps playing like that, again, especially for a team who's most likely not going to have Breece Hall next year, if he balls out, do you cut a guy you think he may have hit as a UDFA? It's going to be, again, interesting. I've said that a lot, but it is. Edwards needs to chill this week so he can be safe in our practice squad. Yeah, that's true. Edwards doesn't do returns. Edwards he was punt returning this week. I'm not sure. Did you see if he's kick returning at all, Michael, or no? Because he was doing punt returns this week, indeed, which kind of led me to believe like, hey, maybe he hasn't done returns, and that's why they're keeping Nguanu. If he can do, if he can return decently, maybe they keep him over. But yeah, it's just we'll see what happens. But did he do any kick returns or just punt returns this week that you heard of?
He didn't. This week I'm not sure in practice. I know in the game he didn't return any kicks, but there's always 2 guys back there. I don't entirely remember if he was ever one of the guys who was back there. I know Corley had one, Nwangwu had one, and who's the other one? One other player did. I forget who it was. I got to look at it, but it wasn't him. So, but yeah, I mean, that could be the battle here. Like it's Nwangwu, all pro kick returner. And a good point someone mentioned, which I didn't bring up. He does contribute in other aspects of special teams. in addition to returning. But he's not a legitimate running back or offensive player versus Edwards is a really solid running back, but doesn't bring the maybe could bring the special teams value, but obviously isn't as proven as Nwangwu. So definitely really interesting between those two guys. I don't think both are going to stay because then you're talking 5 running backs. So that will be very fascinating.
Yeah, it's like, and I think people look at it like two like individual group wise. Like it's really kind of like running back 4 versus receiver 6 and 7 versus tight end 4 versus O tackle 3. Like that's kind of what it is instead of just like, oh, you have to keep this many running backs or whatever. But yeah, it's gonna be it'll be super. It's like that's something we should really look out for. This game is like, hey, is he starting to return kicks and stuff? Because maybe they're trying to see if he can actually do it. But moving on, I guess to corners. So we only got like 13 minutes left here. The cornerback group, I tweeted it out. I don't think Sauce Gardner could have had a better three play start, like just in terms of the one play he pressed the crap out of the receiver on a slant, got a very, very good pass deflection there. The next play, he's like in a run fit, closes ground quickly on the line of scrimmage. Robbie Sabo did a 13-minute breakdown on it, so I don't need to do any more, but hell of a job by Sauce getting involved in the run game. Yeah, he got dragged for 3 or 4 yards, but starting the tackle there was awesome. And then the third play was the slant. The first play was him in cover 3. He zone turned, looked at the quarterback, saw the short drop in accordance with the quick hitch from the receiver, broke on the ball, and then made a pass deflection. So Sauce elite 3 plays. And then the fourth play that I remember from him was the pass interference. But to me, that was it's a bang bang play. The receiver slowed down in my opinion, and Sauce thought the ball was coming, so he jumped a half a second early, but a little bit soft on Sauce there. But an absolutely elite start for Sauce there. Past that, didn't notice Carter in a good or a bad way, so that's usually good for corners. Stigger's up and down, like some good reps, but then there was 2 and a nice play, and he had a gunner snap, right, where the ball he made the tackle at the 5-yard line, I think, Stiggers. So good play by him there. But he also had the play where he almost got beat deep, right, left sideline. He got beat, but the ball was overthrown. And then he also, I forget if it was man or zone, but he let the receiver if you're on the offense, the left sideline, he let the receiver work into his blind spot. And then the quarterback threw the ball, but he threw it too far out of bounds. So he should have gotten beaten really for 20, 30 yards there, but he was lucky. He was a bad quarterback who threw the ball too far outside. So up and down for Stiggers. Past that, did you notice anything to add to those guys or anything else in the cornerback room?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. Hit the damn like. I appreciate that, Indy. Thank you. Definitely do that. If you guys have any other questions, quickly throw them in. We'll kind of lightning around them. I guess we can kind of talk about the main kind of battles we're looking at in the Giants in the Giants preseason game, the Snoopy Bowl. Hopefully you have Aaron Glenn, who's not putting in Justin Fields in the 3rd or 4th quarter to secure the game, secure the bag for the Jets, like one Mr. Rex Ryan did. So what are you looking out for in this game? And actually, let me start with this before we get into some battles and stuff. The Jets, obviously they played the Giants in 2 joint practices this week. So do you think he's going to, I can see a world where he doesn't even play the starters. I think he plays them probably like a quarter, but isn't like practice is almost just as valuable, if not just as valuable. But then you have the 3rd preseason game, which may act like the 4th preseason game. So it's kind of hard to put my finger on exactly how much the starters will play. If I was pressed to say now, I'd probably say like a quarter. So maybe they get like 2 drives, but what do you see in terms of the starters this week?
I mean, I've leaned towards that they would play just because, usually that last game is what teams use for this is our trial game for the bubble players. Starters don't play at all. If I'm thinking about it correctly, I think some teams, since they changed to 3, have used that last game as a rehearsal now versus, when it was 4, pretty much exclusively. No starters played in that last game. But so maybe they do skip this week, put them back out there next week. Because I don't think they have any joint practices with the Eagles, right? So maybe they do that, but so. I'm still kind of leaning that they're just gonna do the same thing, like couple drives for the starters, and then next week is your evaluation game for the rest of the roster. That's my guess right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were okay with the joint practices for the Giants week, and then let's get a little more work next week against the Eagles. What do you think?
Yeah, it's honestly it's really hard for me to predict. Like I don't know. They don't have the joint practice of the Eagles, right? Did you confirm that?
I'll look it
So
up. I don't think so. But.
I don't know because like you have 2 weeks before the start of the regular season after that last preseason game, or like two weeks and 2 days, whatever. So you have some time to bounce back, but
No,
it's
no
kind of
joint
close if you
practice
have a nagging
with the
injury.
Eagles.
It again, if I'm pressed to say now, I think they play a quarter. They play a quarter this game and then maybe sit versus the Eagles. If not, maybe a quarter versus the Eagles. But I don't think you're seeing like a half from the starters in this preseason, especially when you have the joint practices. If they didn't, I'll be pushing for it. But I'm sure that they've learned more in those 2 joint practices than they did in this preseason game anyway. So the upcoming preseason game. So yeah, I really don't know. It's impossible to know, especially when Glenn doesn't tell you stuff and he's keeping it kind of a secret. We'll see. I'm sure it could be a thing where him and Dable are talking about it. Like, hey, do we even want to play our guys? You know, like what do we want to do here? So it could be something like that. Actually, really quickly before we get to the questions, we have 7 minutes left here. We didn't talk, we'll do this lightning round because again, who really cares? They're quarterback 3, quarterback 4. I think they're probably fighting for quarterback 1 on the practice squad between Cook and Martinez. But what do you think about their games? That's one position we didn't talk about. Oh, and punters and kickers. So we'll hit that after.
Yeah, well, quarterbacks, I liked both of them. I mean, Martinez missed the deep ball to Smith. That was a missed opportunity. But I liked Cook. I mean, the throw he made when he stood in there with the pressure, he layered it over the linebacker, got it to Johnson.
That's a very
good throw. That's one of the best, probably the best throw by a Jets quarterback in this game.
It was.
I, for the most part, like the way they both played. And it's interesting that Cook was in there first and Martinez got the more extended look. That could be part of a plan. Like maybe it'll be rotated this week. It doesn't necessarily mean that Cook is ahead, but it could mean that he's ahead. We've heard a lot of positive things about him and his development in camp. He didn't start well at all. It was pretty bad from what we were hearing. But Robbie's talked about it a lot, that he's made noticeable progress throughout camp. I think of all the quarterbacks, he's the one who's improved the most throughout from the start of camp to now. So to see him come out in this game and play well was pretty impressive. So I kind of like the way they both played. I mean, did you have a pick between the two of them who stood out more to you? Did you think either of them struggled more than people thought?
Yeah, no, not really. Like I would say and again, like Martinez, I think it was a lot more like simple stuff. I think he just executed the offense pretty well, showed some athleticism. The one play I showed, he did a really good job of like just staying poised under pressure. It's the play where like he stepped up and then I think rolled out to the left and hit he hit Kuntz on the sideline there. Yeah, Kuntz. So that was a nice play by him. He missed the deep ball.
Funny note on the Packers broadcast when that play happened, it was John Kuhn, but when Kuntz made that catch, Kevin Harlan was like, there's a 12-yard gain by Zach Kuntz, and he was like, who? So that's Zach Kuntz's impact in the league so far.
You know, was he a 7th round pick or was he? He's 7th round pick, right, for the Jets?
7th rounder, yeah.
Yeah. So then past that, Cook had I would say 2 bad plays. Again, that throw to Tyler Johnson layered over the linebacker was a very, very good throw, the best throw of the game, easily in my opinion. Past that, the read option, he definitely should have handed it off. That defender was too far outside leverage and flat-footed. So but I get it, dude. Like you're a UDFA trying to make a play, so it can happen. But you got to be smarter there. Got to hand it off. And the one play where he was under pressure and he kind of, I don't know if he just stepped back and rolled out to the right a little bit, but he was either getting touched or about to get touched and like threw a ball fading away and almost got picked off by a diving Packers defender. That was a bad play. Just got to know when to dirt it or take the sack. But past that, I thought he executed the offense well and again had a really nice throw. So kind of even. I would say like it seems like because Martinez got more stats and yards, people were higher on him than Cook on Twitter. But I think Cook had the better like flash plays. So yeah, it's going to be another spot to watch. Like maybe they give Cook more reps this week. We'll see. Quick question from Yeti. I'll play the old man once again. Can a kick returner return punts? I don't think this is an old man question, Yeti. I think this is just a general kind of football question. Typically with kick returners, they're more guys who like build up ahead of steam and are like long striders and fast. Where punt returners are more like your shifty, quick guys because you catch a ball at a kick return and the defenders are now closer. What are they, 25 yards away or whatever? But punt returns, you're talking about guys within 2, 3, 4 yards of you. So typically the kick returners are bigger, longer striders, and the punt returners are the quicker, shiftier guys. Can guys both kick and punt return? Yes, it typically doesn't happen. And then a gunner is your fifth cornerback, receiver, backup center for long snap. Yeah, that's kind of like a longer discussion about roster gymnastics and stuff. But kick returners and punt returners are different just because of what you look for in terms of like athleticism. Give me Member versus Carter for 2 quarters. I think Carter's going to be lining up all over the place. A little bit, Penn State, Micah Parsons, like lining over centers and stuff. Who signs first, AVT or Simpson? I'm going to go with AVT over Simpson. If they'd only signed one, or who signs first, would you say the same? Or you think Simpson?
I think
because
so.
maybe
Yeah.
Simpson's a little bit old,
Yeah.
a little bit older. AVT is 25. He's 27. So by next year, 26 and 28. Simpson may demand less than AVT because he hasn't shown the ceiling that AVT has shown. But to me, AVT is younger. AVT is more versatile. He can play all up and down the offensive line. And to me, he's a Pro Bowl level guard. Where Simpson's a solid player, but AVT is he's a very good player, dude. Like doing that review, he's just so consistently solid. I'm signing AVT over Simpson. I think the Jets would as well. Are you same boat? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I also believe any young kicker should learn how to punt, vice versa, double your pay, save a slot. I don't know if it's ever been done before, but yeah, sure. I'm with you. 3 roster spots, fullback availability. Okay, let's see. Breakout season loading. I think Brees gets a new contract by the bye week. Yep, you heard it here first. It's all dependent on like what's realistic for him. I'm kind of in the boat where like I think he thinks he's better than he is. So if he has a solid year this year, is he going to demand like really high end running back money? And if he doesn't perform well, then obviously the Jets probably won't bring him back. So if I had to decide right now, I would say he's not back next year for the Jets. But I think the running back market has been relatively favorable, right? Like Kyron Williams, James Cook getting about 11, 12-ish $million a year, right? So could you get Breece Hall by the bye week if he starts playing decently well for 2 years, $20 million, 2 years, 24, something like that? If he kind of bounces back to form, you think you'd be down for a Breece Hall 2-year, $24 million extension?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. It's and then you also have the factor of like this being a committee backfield, so that is something to throw into it. But I don't know. It's a complex discussion, but his ceiling is so high that I think about it because I can't forget that it was a year ago when I had him number 1 on my Jets roster rankings. That still happened. So the ceiling is really high. But, committee backfield, he's starting to, we're getting past the point where he's a young running back. There are factors to consider. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
And how do the explosion numbers look too? Like if you have 2 years and your explosion numbers are way down and that's what made him good, can you really re-sign him? Like for that money? I don't think you can. If he is what he was last year, you can't re-sign him because he was not good last year. We'll do this really within a minute, Nanya. Quick things you're looking out for on in the preseason game versus the Giants, and then we'll wrap up with some like articles coming up or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, just beyond individual players, I'd love to see them maintain some of the things they did last game. Just the way they tackled, the way that they were more physical. It just felt like in the Packers, and then just the penalties. Like Aaron Glenn sent a message yelling at McCrary Ball, benching Clemens. Can they make a noticeable difference with avoiding those just the dumb penalties like holding, roughing the passer? They might have some of those this year, but can we get the dumb ones out? So I'll be watching that. But you said it earlier. I've got multiple articles a day coming out. Preseason is just a great content time. There's so much to cover. We're excited to cover it because we've been waiting for new content. I just put out an episode of Cool Your Jets yesterday, so listen to that. But yeah, I mean, you've kind of been starring recently as well with the mass kind of release of film content that we're getting here. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and I 1,000% lied to you. Do it quickly, but quick kicker and punter. We didn't talk about that. I'll recap kicker. Nick Folk was 1 for 1 extra point. Mevis had he's like a 27, 29, like a 36, and they were all super sketchy kicks. I didn't love it. But so I know you agree with that. But punter Mac Manera, go off a little bit on him because I know you praised him a little bit. I think on Twitter I saw it.
Yeah, no, And you nailed it with Mevis. Like those kicks were ugly despite going in.
So
They were
sketchy.
short kicks. He barely made some of them. So I think that competition's over. And Mevis is it's just a matter of will the Jets even want to keep him on their practice squad at this point? But McNamara, yeah, 3 punts. You don't want to read into that too much, but good distance and good hang time simultaneously is always a great thing. It allowed Stigers to get down there, make a great tackle. They had the recovery, and he had a nice fair catch inside the 10 on a short field punt. So I think it was a glimpse into why they probably released Kroger and they haven't added any competition yet. So I think McNamara is your punter for the season, and you've got to get your number 14 jersey stitched into a McNamara jersey.
I might. If I don't know if I still have the Darnold, to be honest, but yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I know Nani's been looking at the punters big time, but yeah, again, the film stuff, you're gonna get your own short video a week. It's not just a clipping of the big review. You also get the big review. You'll get a short. Follow me, JorB31 on Twitter. So if you're if you're used to the old reviews, you didn't like how to say they were clipped from the big ones, just go and check these out. Again, they're their own videos. So whatever group stands out in a good or bad way, I'll be doing that every single week. Its own video plus the full one. That's really it, I guess. Jets X Factor. Look at all the great writers we have, and we'll be back next week with another podcast, I think, and I'll have the film breakdowns and all other stuff. So we appreciate you guys, and hopefully we win the Snoopy Bowl, and we will be back